The dust has settled on Middlesbrough's playoff final defeat to Hull City, and fans are now starting to question where it all went wrong this time around. In truth, it could have been 5 months ago that Middlesbrough's fate this season was sealed. Now, Middlesbrough spent a record amount of time in the top two this season. We looked hell-bent on getting automatic promotion. We were level on points with Coventry City, really running away with things at the top. But a late season drop in form saw us fall out of the top two into the playoff places, where of course we played Southampton, we had the whole Spygate saga, and then ultimately we went on to play Hull City at Wembley Stadium, but fell short with Ollie McBurney scoring in injury time to secure promotion for the Tigers. Now for Middlesbrough, it was a really gut-wrenching, frustrating way to end the season. Of course, football's a game of fine margins. That last-minute goal, the mistake from Sol Brynn, it was ultimately what decided, what sealed Middlesbrough's fate on that final day of the season. But of course, there's a lot more to it. You've got to look at the season in a much broader context to see what exactly went wrong and why Middlesbrough weren't able to keep up the pace of what we set in the first half of the season under Rob Edwards and in the first few months under Kim Hellberg, where we looked absolutely incredible. Now, a lot of fans on social media have been talking about this. I have my own views on it as well, and the main reason that a lot of fans have put their finger on is going all the way back to the January transfer window. Now, Middlesbrough were in an excellent position in the championship table. The old adage is to increase, to improve your squad, to strengthen when you are in a position of strength yourself. Now that's what Middlesbrough could have done in January. It's what other clubs around us did. But Middlesbrough didn't really do that. We did make a couple of signings in January. Of course, we brought in Finn Munro, we brought in Jeremy Sarmiento, we brought in Leo Castledine. But there wasn't really much in the way of senior first-team players who came in and would automatically strengthen Middlesbrough's starting 11. Now, that has been a real stick that's been used to beat the club. It's been used to beat Kieran Scott. It's been used to beat Steve Gibson. And a lot of people are questioning whether Middlesbrough actually had the desire or the guts or the enthusiasm to try and secure promotion this season, because ultimately, had we gone hell for leather in the January transfer window, yes, we could have brought in a couple of players who could have really changed the picture for us. It could have been enough to get us over the line in the hunt for automatic promotion, let alone in the playoffs. But I do think things need to be kept in a little bit more context in terms of the club's financial plan, the business model, that sort of thing as well. Now, if you go back to last summer, we did make a number of attacking signings. Of course, we brought in David Strelach, we brought in Kali Sen, we brought in Sonjay Hansen as well. You've got to remember that previous to that, just 6 months earlier than that, we brought in Morgan Whittaker. All of these signings were for substantial amounts of money at championship level. And so from my point of view, looking in, it seemed like Middlesbrough had their attacking unit set. These were the players that Middlesbrough were going to be banking on. These were going to be the players that we'd be relying on to lead our line into this season that's just finished, but then also moving forward as well. Now, for Middlesbrough, of course, this didn't really work out. A lot of these signings have failed to deliver. Morgan Whittaker has done all right in terms of numbers this season, but he's also been very, very inconsistent in terms of his output. David Strelach has been a really mixed or even disappointing season, really. It's been hampered by injury, yes, but he hasn't really managed to get going. Kali Sen had a couple of bright moments early on. Sonjay Hansen, similar, but both of those players haven't really featured too much in the second half of the season, and obviously there's going to be question marks about whether Kim Hellberg sees them as part of their plans. Now, both of those two players in particular are really interesting talking points with regards to this, because since Kim Hellberg came in, it's been very, very clear that Hansen and Kali Sen are not part of Kim Hellberg's plans. So why weren't we looking to sign players in January who could come in and strengthen the team and come straight into Kim Hellberg's plans? Well, we were, to an extent. We were looking for attackers. Of course, we were linked previously with Ollie McBurney and Patrick Bamford. Adam Armstrong, who was at Southampton at the time, he was heavily linked with Middlesbrough. He was a player that Middlesbrough were in advanced talks with, but ultimately he ended up moving to the Premier League. He joined Rob Edwards and Wolverhampton Wanderers. He went there, got his opportunity to play Premier League football again, and ultimately Middlesbrough decided that when that deal broke down, we weren't going to go out and sign another striker. Now, from my point of view, I didn't see that as too much of a problem at the time, because from what I recall at that time, we were playing with one striker. That was typically Tommy Conway or David Strelach. We also had Kali Sen there, so we had 3 strikers vying for one position in the team. So I saw that as we had decent cover, there was decent depth there. All of these players who in the first half of the season had shown glimpses of what they were capable of. So I didn't see the striking position as too much of an issue. But what happened in the second half of the season, of course, under Kim Hellberg, he was a manager who came in, he has his own ideas about what he wanted to do. Very, very different to what Rob Edwards was wanting to do as well. He came in and changed things around a little bit. David Strelic ended up playing most weeks as our out-and-out number 9. Tommy Conway was then shifted out to the left, which worked well for him. It seemed to be a position, and seems to be a position that suits him quite nicely, playing out on that left side. But David Strelic playing as number 9, he is someone who likes to drop a little bit deeper. So there's question marks about whether he is an out-and-out number 9. Now, that's 2 of Middlesbrough's 3 strikers already in the team, probably not playing their most natural role. Cali Sen also should have been in the mix. He could have been a backup player, but he's fallen completely out of the picture under Kim Hellberg. I'm not exactly sure what's gone on there, but it seems fairly likely that he's going to be someone who'll move on in the summer transfer window. He just doesn't seem to be fancied whatsoever. So all of a sudden, Middlesbrough are in a position where we have no depth in the final third of the pitch, and that's been something that's been a real problem for Middlesbrough. So looking at the last couple of months between February the 21st and April the 22nd, so 2 months of time, Middlesbrough failed to win in 9 matches during that time. All of those games were decided by a single goal. So ultimately, if Middlesbrough had scored 1 goal more, the outcome of the match would have been completely different. Now, that is something which is hugely frustrating because, as we all know, people who've seen Middlesbrough a lot over this season, we've dominated possession. We've had so much of the ball. We've really held our own in that regard. We've played some really good possession-based football. We've created a lot of chances. We've had a lot of shots on goal, but none of them have been really top-quality opportunities to find the back of the net, and that's where we've fallen short. It really has been just simply down to the quality in the final third, whether that's from a creativity point of view, whether that's from having someone in the box to convert these opportunities. Middlesbrough have not been able to capitalise on the dominance that they've had in these matches, and that's been a real problem. Now, it's very, very easy to say if Middlesbrough had signed Adam Armstrong, we would have got promoted. We don't know. We don't know whether that would have been the case or not. But you do look back at that January transfer window and wonder, had we been able to strengthen? Had we maybe taken a gamble and brought in someone like Adam Armstrong or similar? Someone who, yes, might not have fitted into the business model. Of course, Middlesbrough are looking to, longer term, I guess, they're looking to bring in players who can be brought in and developed, players who can be signed for a smaller fee, developed over a couple of seasons and then sold on for a profit or grow with the club and move into the Premier League. Someone like Adam Armstrong, Ollie McBurney, Patrick Bamford, they would not have been those players. These are players who are not going to increase in value during the next couple of years. They're at the I don't want to say the back end of their career, but they're certainly in the second half of their career, let's put it that way. So they're not going to grow in value, but there is something to be said for having players who have been there and done it. Someone who can go in there, dominate defenders, someone who can really bully championship back lines and really make an impact in the here and now. That is something that Middlesbrough have maybe lacked. I've seen a lot of criticism as well about Middlesbrough and the fact that maybe we're too nice. Maybe we've only got a few players and people like Aidan Morris, Dale Fry, Luke Ayling, who are sort of tough nuts, people who would go into these matches and really just not cower away from any sort of challenge, a physical challenge, whatever it might be. We don't really have too many of those players, and maybe, just maybe, having an experienced player coming in, leading the line, someone to hang your hat on in the opposition box, someone who even doesn't contribute too much else in terms of the overall build-up, but someone who's going to be in the penalty area, like what Ollie McBurney was for Hull City against Middlesbrough, just someone who's going to be there and ready to pounce when the opportunity presents itself. Maybe that is what Middlesbrough would have needed to get over the line. Now, of course, this is all said in hindsight. This is a situation that is very easy to say that if we'd signed someone, we would have got promoted and that sort of thing. And of course, it needs to be right. It needs to be right for Kim Hellberg's system. I do also think there's an element of transfer strategy there as well, because as I said, Middlesbrough had spent a significant sum of money on attacking players during the summer. So maybe the budget was spent. Maybe they didn't want to spend anything more on attacking players in the January transfer window. But it's completely valid that supporters will be asking the question of whether Middlesbrough's January transfer window and maybe the lack of ambition or the perceived lack of ambition is what's cost us, because ultimately we can say it in hindsight, we were so close to going up. We were in a brilliant position in the top 2. We fell short there. We fell into the playoffs, of course, all the Spygate stuff, we're not going to go into that now, But ultimately, we got to Wembley Stadium very, very close. We got into injury time in the game, and that's where we fell short again. So we're talking about fine margins here. And maybe if Middlesbrough had those attacking players, someone who was a really experienced player, someone who had been signed just purely to get Middlesbrough over the line this season, things could have been very, very different, and Middlesbrough could have been cashing a cheque for around about £200 million right about now. So I want to know what you think about this. There's some of my thoughts on this debate. Of course, it's not something we can say one way or another. We can't say it's definitely cost Middlesbrough. We can't say that it hasn't cost us, because ultimately Middlesbrough's attack has been a problem. Kim Hellberg's admitted that. It's been said on BBC Tees, it's been said in Teesside Live, it's been said in the Northern Echo that Middlesbrough's lack of attacking firepower has ultimately cost us this season. But I want to know what you think. Drop into the comments below. Let me know what you think about Middlesbrough's January transfer window and whether that is what is responsible for Middlesbrough falling short this season. If you have enjoyed this video, please do hit like, please do hit subscribe, and I will catch up with you next time.